The scanner does not care about timing. That is the first thing you learn running a clinic on a fringe world with no license and no backup. The machines do their job regardless of what is happening outside your door, and that night, what was happening outside my door was a patrol working its way street by street, with handheld lights, looking for a woman I already had lying on my table. She had come to my hatch a little after midnight, on her feet, only because will can carry a body a surprising distance past what the body has left to give. I did not ask who she was. I have run this clinic for 11 years on the principle that I treat what walks in, and I have long since stopped being surprised by what that turns out to be. I got her onto the table, cut away enough of the field wrap someone had cinched around her ribs to see the wound underneath was worse than the wrap let on, and started the only kind of conversation I have with new patients. Quiet, practical, the kind that keeps a frightened person's attention on my hands instead of on how frightened they are. She told me her name was Ilya. She did not tell me anything else, and I did not push. This settlement sits at the far edge of 3 jurisdictions, close enough to nothing that most people who wash up here have already run out of better places to be. I have treated smugglers, deserters, a debt collector who bled out 2 tables down from a man he'd come to collect from, and I have never once made it my business to ask any of them what they were before they walked through my hatch. Ilya was simply the latest in a long line of people I chose not to interrogate, except that most of them didn't carry themselves the way she did, even half-conscious. Spine straight even lying down, eyes tracking the room like she was cataloging exits out of old habit rather than fresh fear. Outside, twice in the first hour, I heard the patrol's lights sweep the alley behind my clinic, close enough that I killed my own lamps and worked by the glow of the monitor alone. She watched me do it without a word, the way you watch someone confirm a thing you'd already decided to trust them on. Intake protocol on this world requires a baseline genome scan on any patient without prior clinic records, a leftover regulation from the settlement's founding charter, back when they worried about smuggled contagion more than they worried about anything else. I ran it on her the way I run it on everyone, mostly out of habit, half expecting nothing but a routine ident mismatch I'd have to explain to nobody, since nobody official was likely to ever see this chart. The machine did not give me a mismatch. It gave me a flag I had never once seen it raise in 11 years, a lineage marker, cross-referenced against an old treaty registry that should have gone dark 2 generations back, tagged consort cipher, active match. I ran it a second time, certain I'd fed it a corrupted sample. It gave me the same result, this time with my own name pulled up alongside hers on the display, a thin braided line connecting 2 family trees I would have sworn had nothing to do with each other. "That's not possible," I said, mostly to myself. She looked at the screen for a long moment, and something in her face changed. Not shock exactly, more like a door she'd assumed was permanently sealed, swinging open on hinges that still, against all reason, worked. "My grandmother's court signed a consort pact 3 generations ago," she said. "A promise between houses, sealed in blood cipher, meant to bind an heir to an ally line if the direct succession ever failed entirely. I was told the other house was extinguished in the border wars. I was told there was no one left to honor it. There's a marsh homestead 2 systems over that's been growing potatoes since before I was born," I said. "Nobody in my family has held a title in 4 generations. I didn't know we ever had one to lose." "You didn't need to know," she said. "The cipher doesn't require memory, only blood." She almost laughed, though it clearly hurt her ribs to do it. "It's why I came to this door instead of any other on this street." I told myself it was instinct. Apparently instinct has better paperwork than I gave it credit for. I want to say I handled the next hour with some kind of composure, but mostly I just kept working, because the alternative was sitting with the fact that the woman on my table, bleeding from a wound her own Regency Council had put there, was apparently owed something by my family that I had no idea how to give her beyond stitches and a locked door. She did not ask me to understand what it meant. She only asked, once, quietly, whether I intended to turn her out once the patrol moved off. I didn't dignify that with an answer. I just kept working. The patrol swept the alley twice more before dawn, close enough the second time that I heard boots on the gravel outside the service hatch, and stood between her table and that door with a suture kit still in my hand, because it was the only thing I had, and because I had already decided, scan or no scan, that I wasn't opening it. They moved on. Whatever they were searching for, they didn't search hard enough to find a clinic with its lamps out and its door quiet. By the time the light came up gray through the shutter slats, her vitals had settled into something I could stop watching every 10 minutes, and I finally let myself sit down across from her instead of hovering at her side. "You don't have to do anything with what that screen said," she told me. "I've spent my whole life being told what old paper obligates people to do for me. I would rather know what a person chooses." "I already chose," I said, before the machine had an opinion about it. She didn't answer that with anything grand. She reached over, slow with the effort it cost her, and turned the diagnostic tablet face down on the counter between us. "The way you set aside a formality you've decided doesn't need repeating." "Then I'd like your help finding what's left of my house," she said. "Not because a cipher says you owe it, because I have nowhere else I'd rather start." I told her the truth, which was that I didn't know the first thing about court politics or lost loyalists or consort obligations 3 generations deep, and that everything I did know was stitches, fevers, and how to keep a door shut when it needed to stay shut. "That's more than most people manage," she said, and meant it plainly enough that I believed her. We left the clinic 2 days later, once she could walk the distance herself, the tablet with its stubborn little flag still in my coat pocket, unexplained to anyone but the two of us. I locked up a place I'd run alone for 11 years, and didn't look back at it the way I thought I might. There is a particular kind of quiet that settles over a person when a life they assumed was fixed turns out to have a door in it they never noticed. Not loud, not triumphant, just steady, the way a diagnosis reads clean after a long night of not knowing. I don't know yet what we'll find, or how much of her house is left to find at all. Loyalists scatter fast when a regency turns on its own queen, and 3 generations is a long time for a treaty line to sit unspoken in a family that grows potatoes for a living. I know the scanner doesn't lie about lineage, and I know a woman trusted the one door in that street that turned out, against every reasonable expectation either of us had, to already belong to her in some old, quiet way neither of us had asked for. She still calls it instinct, mostly, when she talks about that night at all. I've noticed she doesn't correct herself on it anymore, and I've stopped needing her to. Whatever the old cipher meant to the people who sealed it 3 generations back, it did not ask either of us to feel a particular way about each other on command, and I am grateful for that more than I expected to be. What I chose before the machine offered its opinion, and what she chose, she tells me, she chose the moment she decided which door on that street to knock on, long before either of us had a name for why. That will have to be enough to start with. It has been enough so far, and I find I am in no hurry to ask it to be anything grander than that.